I never thought a simple meeting could change everything. One minute we were laughing, chatting like old friends, and the next, I was standing there, frozen, heart pounding in my chest, my thoughts racing faster than I could process. It started innocently enough. He was just her husband, a man I had known for years, always friendly, always kind. Nothing more than a distant figure in the background of my life. But that night, when we met at her house, something shifted, something neither of us could control. What happened next? It wasn't supposed to happen, not like this. But I couldn't stop it. Neither of us could. The moment we crossed that line, everything changed. I had been friends with Claire for years. We shared everything, our dreams, our secrets, and even our deepest fears. She had always been there for me, through thick and thin. And then there was him, David, her husband. He was charming, good-looking, the kind of guy you would never expect to cause any trouble. Always the perfect husband in everyone's eyes. But I never paid much attention to him. At least, not in that way. Not until that night. It started with dinner. Claire invited me over. Just a casual get-together. I'd had a rough week, and she insisted I needed some time to relax. David was there too, of course. He greeted me like he always did. Polite, friendly, but distant. Nothing out of the ordinary. But as the evening wore on, something felt off. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more going on beneath the surface. Claire was distracted, constantly texting on her phone. David, on the other hand, seemed to be unusually attentive toward me, offering me more wine, more food, lingering a little too long when handing me things. At first I thought I was imagining it, but there was something in his gaze. Something that felt different. The turning point came when Claire stepped out of the room for a few minutes. She said she'd be back soon, but she was gone longer than expected. And that's when it happened. David didn't say anything at first, just watching me with that same look I hadn't been able to place before. His eyes darkened, and suddenly I felt the weight of his attention in a way I never had. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice low, calm. I nodded, but my heart was racing. "I've noticed something," he continued. "You've been a little off lately. You and Claire have always been so close, but you seem distant." I laughed nervously. "I'm fine, really." But he didn't seem convinced. Instead, he moved closer, his presence overwhelming in the quiet of the room. His hand brushed against mine, just barely, but it was enough to send a shiver down my spine. I pulled my hand back instinctively, but he was faster. His fingers closed around mine, his grip gentle but firm. "You don't have to pretend with me," he whispered. I wanted to pull away, wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come. I was paralyzed, caught in the storm of emotions swirling inside me. His touch was like a magnet, drawing me in despite myself. In that moment, I felt exposed, not just physically, but emotionally. Why was I letting this happen? Why wasn't I stopping him? But it wasn't that simple. No matter how hard I tried to push the thoughts away, they kept coming back. His closeness was intoxicating, and I couldn't deny the pull between us. It was like a dangerous dance, one that I knew would end badly, but I couldn't stop myself. Before I could make sense of it, his lips were on mine. The kiss was soft at first, hesitant, as though he was waiting for me to pull away. But I didn't, and neither did he. The moment stretched out, filled with tension that I couldn't escape. He pulled back, eyes dark with something I didn't understand. "You don't have to say anything," he murmured, his voice thick with desire. "But I want you. I've wanted you for a long time." My breath caught in my throat. The air between us was electric, charged with something I couldn't explain. I stepped back, my mind racing. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in on me. What had just happened? What had I allowed to happen? I could hear Claire's voice from the other room, and suddenly, the guilt hit me like a wave. "David, we can't," I started, but he cut me off. It's too late, he said softly, his tone unwavering. You can't pretend you don't feel it. You've felt this too, haven't you? I didn't answer him. I couldn't. I was too caught up in the whirlwind of emotions and confusion. He didn't say anything more. He didn't need to. The tension in the room was suffocating, and I knew that everything was about to change. There was no going back now. Claire came back into the room a few minutes later, completely unaware of what had just happened. David acted as if nothing had changed, but I could feel the distance growing between us. I could feel the weight of the secret pressing on my chest, and I knew that I could never go back to the way things were before. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. I barely heard the conversation. I barely noticed the laughter or the clinking of glasses. All I could think about was what had happened between me and David, and what it meant for everything else. The next few days were a blur. I avoided David. I avoided Claire. But I couldn't escape the tension that hung between us, the unspoken words that lingered in the air. I knew I had to confront it. I had to face the truth of what had happened. I couldn't let this ruin everything. But I couldn't forget it either. So, I made a decision. A decision that would change everything. Would I confront Claire about what happened? Or would I bury the secret, pretending it was just a mistake? Would I confess, or keep living with the weight of what I had done? I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing. This moment will haunt me forever.